Responding to your comments to show the wave of culture has changed and is moving in a different direction. Because if you remember Joe Rogan, he was born Catholic in a Catholic household, but he became an atheist, and he had a lot of comedy jokes about, God and the Bible and making fun of it, and it's silly, and people that believe in it are just stupid and they don't know how to deal with reality, so they got to make up a God to soothe themselves, to make themselves feel better. But now he has grown out of that, and he's meeting actual Christians that are strong Christians that have reasons for their belief, that can articulate the truth behind Christianity, and it's showing a cultural shift away from this new atheism that only tells people you come from monkeys, your life means nothing, and you're going to go to nothing. People are finding this worldview actually not effective, not good for their life. It's just bringing them depression and anxiety, and people are moving back towards God and back towards Jesus. So it's just almost like a signal, like a flag, that even if this staunch atheist, right, even proclaiming himself an atheist, saying God doesn't exist and making fun of the Bible, has now changed his heart and turned towards Christ, in my perspective, towards God. I think that's a big cultural moment, and you can see it by the views and the internet and what's happening. The internet's changing, specifically, but I know the Quran and Muslims are very deceptive with their own texts, that they're not honest with it, that they're going to twist and manipulate it to suit their own narrative. So yes, in the Islamic perspective, Allah actually didn't let Jesus die on the cross. He switched him out for another person. A lot of Muslims believe it was Judas, and he let that person die on behalf of Jesus and made that person look like Jesus to deceive Christians into believing this, so then Allah could send them to hell, because Allah is so merciful and he's so just. And then what did Allah do to Jesus? He brought Jesus up from the earth on the cross to his throne with him in the highest part of heaven. So Jesus is with Allah in heaven, sitting on a throne, while Muhammad is in hell, even according to Muslim doctrine and belief. He is in hell. Every Muslim has to go to hell. Everybody. Nobody is exempt from going to hell except Jesus. For some strange reason, if you Muslims could just, educate me on it. Well, there's only one Messiah in the Bible. This is people that are so ignorant that don't even know what Jews believed, what Judaism teaches, that there isn't multiple Messiahs and multiple of these. No, there's multiple prophets, but there's only one Messiah, and they were waiting for the Messiah to come. And if you read Daniel and the Son of Man and the things that Jesus says about himself, right, when he's in front of the Sanhedrin, and then he says that you're going to see the Son of Man coming down with the clouds of heaven. And what do? They rip their clothes and say, do we have any more need, right? Do we not all hear him blaspheming? Now we have to kill him for blaspheming. For him being a man, claims to be God, right? Claims to be on the same level as God. This is blasphemy to a Jew in the first century. So why did they pick up stones to stone him? Why did they crucify him? Because it was blasphemy. They knew what he was saying. Just because you, as a Muslim, getting your information 600 years after the fact, right, you think you know, well, that's not the truth, okay? The Messiah is one person, and he is anointed above all else, and Jesus Christ is God. Allahu Akbar. This is the miracle of Islam. When you accept Islam, this is the kind of nonsense you spew. Allah prayed not for the Prophet, to the Prophet. What does that mean? Who's Allah praying to? Why is your monotheistic God praying in the first place? At least our God, we have a Trinity, so there's multiple persons and relationships in there, so they can communicate with each other. So if one person of the Trinity comes down to earth, they're not going to break off that relationship. Jesus isn't going to come to earth and become an atheist and say, I don't know who God is. No, Jesus is going to pray because he's going to show us as humans how we should behave, how we should be, what the perfect man should be like. And the perfect man prays. So Jesus prays and communicates with his Father, even though they're co-equal in divinity sense. But in position, Jesus came down on earth to be a servant. It says in the Bible, and I'll put the verse up, Jesus came as a servant. He veiled his glory. He didn't come in the same way when the transfiguration, right? Remember the transfiguration I was telling you about? When Jesus goes on the mountain and Elijah and Moses show up, and it says they were wearing clothes that were so dazzling white that no bleach could ever make this clothes this white, and his face shone, and all of these things. This is like Jesus in his glory. But on earth, he veils it, right? He makes himself look like a common man that you couldn't just see and say, oh, that's God right there. But this would probably all go over your head because Allah and the angels pray, and you guys don't have a Trinity. So who's Allah praying to?
I would disqualify anything a Muslim said just based off the fact that the description of what their God looks like is like...
I love it because a left hand is bad luck. So Allah has two right hands. He only has one foot. He has a shin. He has a waist garment. When you think about this, and then the thing is, Muslims will tell you he has a hand, but his hand is nothing like anything in creation. And then I'm like, okay, but my hand's nothing like anything in creation. A chicken's foot's nothing like it. Everything can be unique, but what does that mean? Allah still has a hand. He still has a foot that he puts in hell, right? Allah still has gonads, right? But your God, did he exist before space, matter, time, and place? So how could he exist, right, before these things? I know you're getting tired just imagining it, but how could Allah exist, right, before time, space, and place if he has a body part that needs time, space, and place? The God of the Bible, right, we believe he does not have a physical body by necessity. He can take on a body later on, but in the beginning, God was spirit, right? He isn't physical. He isn't something you can touch. He doesn't have a hand and a leg and all this body parts, right? But they believe in love. They believe in laws. They believe in the laws of logic. They believe in all these things that aren't physical. They believe in consciousness. Where's consciousness? Where is it in your brain? Can we find it? Can we take it out? Can we touch it? You can't touch it. You can't find it. You don't know where it is. You don't know what it is. But we just believe these things. And then we just say, don't worry about the explanations, guys. We don't need explanations. There was a British man in Parliament talking about all the Muslim grape gangs that are going around taking young white British girls. And then I posted the video, and then I said, is it racist to talk about Islam because it was all these Pakistani Muslims doing it? And then the commenter says, this is racist, even though Islam isn't a race, right? If I asked you what race is Islam, what would you say? And that would be incorrect, because the most Muslims in the world, do you know where they live? Indonesia.
Really?
Yes, Indonesia has the largest population of Muslims in the world. So most Muslims are Indonesian. But even that, it doesn't matter. So this is what's amazing about the Quranic dilemma. If the Quran is true, then it's false, because the Quran claims to be the third revelation. This is what you were trying to get into. So there's the Torah, right? Old Testament, the Jews. There's the New Testament, Christians, and the Christians take the Old Testament as well. And then Islam professes to be the third in line in that line of, Judaism, Christianity, then Islam. Islam just says, we're in the same branch. We're just the most recent, version, and you guys need to follow our version and follow our book. But when you go into the Quran, and the Quran talks about how the books of the Jews and Christians, the Torah and the Injil, the Gospels, are actually sent from the same God, Allah, and nobody can change Allah's words, then the Muslims tell you, but people actually change Allah's words. People are stronger than Allah to change his words, and Allah only actually really likes the Quran, and he really only wants to protect the Quran. He doesn't want to protect his other books. He wants Jews and Christians to be confused so he can send them to hell and have, great reasons to do so. And that's just false on the face of it. But the Quran says that the Injil, the Gospel, the Torah is from God. But when you go into the Torah and the Injil, the Gospel and the Psalms, it contradicts everything Muhammad says and believes. So if Islam is true and we believe the Quran and we say, okay, let's go read the Bible, what does the Bible say about Muhammad? And it says he's a false prophet. And what does it say about the Quran and all of these things? Like, it's demonic. So the Bible completely contradicts the Quran and everything that it says. And instead of being a person that says, wow, the Quran just told me to go a book that rejects the book that I'm reading now, you should throw away the Quran and use it as toilet paper.
There are 54 countries on the continent of Africa, and not a single one of these countries qualify as a first world society. We imported the third world.
Because I agree with the point that we are having, what's the word, inappropriate immigration policies where we're literally just opening up our borders and bringing in everybody and not vetting people and seeing what people we should take and what people we shouldn't take, what values they have, are they going to assimilate, do they want to make, Canada a Sharia law country and a Muslim majority country, like what are these values that these people are bringing, and we don't do that in Canada and in the West in particular. Right, we have an open immigration policy where everybody comes in and then we deal with the results and we see what is happening. So I agree with that point, but the point about Africa, I kind of twitch about it because obviously I'm African, I have a bias, and I think that a lot of Western countries and just the whole world in general is robbing Africa of their natural resources and keeping corrupt politicians in the head of leadership in these African countries, and by design keeping it down, right? Because that's the base of our economic system. All of the cobalt that we get that comes from Congo, from all the iPhones and all the lithium batteries, and everything is built on top of the slave labor and the resources that are in Africa. And my personal view is if Africa was left alone to its own devices to unify or to become independent, it would actually disrupt the whole world's balance. So I think it's done by design as well.
Somebody said, under your video, can atheists answer this question? Somebody said you start with defining God into existence.
Well, I think God is a necessary being, meaning if you have for the atheists it's so confusing because they believe in the Big Bang, right? The Big Bang started at a certain time and place. Then it's like, okay, why did it start? Right? Who started it, right? If you see a house that's built, you don't just assume it was just always there. You don't just assume the house was there. So if I come to a property and I see a house or a building and I just say, wow, I wonder who built that. And then you say, wow, you're just going to start off by assuming somebody built a house? Doesn't that sound stupid? Because everybody knows when you see something that's built, something that's created, something that has been started, you just automatically infer that there was a mind behind it. Even if you can't find the person, you don't know who did it, and the person died and they're no longer here, we know that nothing, right, comes from something, right? You believe that there was nothing and then there was something. So something came out of nothing. That's impossible. Unless you have a God, then you can make sense of all of these things. The same way you use your brain to try to understand what I'm saying right now, but your brain is just a bunch of chemicals in motion that came from a monkey's brain. Why do you trust it to do science, to do logic, to do reasoning? But you just assume that your brain can do this, and then you do it. So we all have what we call presuppositions that we all hold, and these are my presuppositions, and those are your presuppositions, and I think mine are better than yours.
How this one parable of Jesus humbled Richard Dawkins. Somebody said, so he likes to be a sinner living among God-fearing people. What an unbelievingly ignorant thought pattern.
I really like that comment because it just shows the logic of atheists, that they hate Christianity, they want to destroy Christianity, but they want to live in a Christian country and enjoy the fruits of Christianity. That video with Richard Dawkins was the donkey that loved apples but hated apple trees and went around just cutting every apple tree down and thinking apples just grew inside of grocery stores. And after he cut the last apple tree down and there were no more apples, he was so sad. The same way Richard Dawkins is sad that Europe is becoming a Muslim infested area, and he doesn't want to live in Sharia law. He wants to live in a Christian nation where he has freedoms and respect and life and liberty and all these things that cannot be proven or tested with test tubes and science and atheism. You need a God, you need a theistic worldview to have these beliefs. And atheists quite feel comfortable living in the West. They don't want to live in Afghanistan. They want to live in Canada, America, the UK. And they keep destroying the foundation that they're on, the branch that they're sitting on that is Christianity in the Western Christian nations. They're just cutting that branch off and they're surprised when they're falling down. And I just say you better start learning Arabic.
Who can instruct and order God? For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me.
The thing is, at the end of the day, it's hard to know, or not hard to know, it's impossible to know what the exact relationship with Jesus his divinity, his humanity, how that exactly worked in the mixing and what it felt like. We don't know. But what we do know is Jesus says, I did not come to this earth to be served, but to serve, right? Jesus came to this earth to be a servant. And how the Trinity works is they're equal, but they have different roles, right? Jesus is the Son. The Father is the Father. The Holy Spirit is the Holy Spirit. They have different aspects and different roles in the relationship that they play. So it doesn't mean that Jesus is less than God, because God the Father had this plan from all of eternity that the Trinity had, that we're going to send the Son, the second person in the Trinity, to go to the earth to suffer for man, right? That is the Father's will, but it's also the Son's will. But where does it originate from? Because when you're talking about God and his eternal attributes, it's not even, it's not right to say, because Jesus proceeds from God. But what does that mean before proceeds out from God, right? This is how we learn about it in church teaching, that the Father is the fountain, right? And then like the Father is the Son, and Jesus is like the light that comes out of the sun. But if the sun has always existed, right, was there ever a time where the sun wasn't shining, right? It doesn't make sense, right? If God the Father has always been a father, has there ever been a time where there wasn't the Son? Because I've been a father for how long? A father for 3 years. But Ellie, I don't want to say her name actually.
Yeah.
My first daughter had to be born for me to become a father, right? But say I was a father for all of eternity. What would that have to mean about my daughter? Does that mean my daughter came in at a certain time? Would I still be a father for eternity? If my daughter wasn't there for eternity, then that means there was a certain time when I wasn't the father, correct?
Yeah.
But the Father has always been a father. So what does that mean? What is the logical inference that we can make?
He had a son just as long as he was a father.
Exactly. Because most atheists don't believe in free will. Because if consciousness is just chemical reactions inside of your brain, then it's not something you can control. It's just chance and evolution. Chance and evolution made your brain, so if you go and do something really, really bad, it's not really your fault because you didn't really choose to. There is no choice. So they even take it, they take themselves out of the equation to that extent, where they're not even in control of their free will. But what do? They make YouTube videos all day talking about Christianity and how it's not true and you're stupid to believe it, even though they believe there is no free will. So I'm really not choosing to believe in Christianity because I don't have free will. So why are you doing this thing with me? So even logically, they don't make sense. Why are you an atheist? Why are you in
teachings do you think is the
most different?
differentiates us? Yes.
The biggest difference in our teaching is that our God died on the cross for us, paid the price for us, humbled himself for us. And all these other religions, God is not humble. God is not bringing himself down to human level of view. Look at any of the other main world religions. There is nothing quite as unique and as special as Christianity. The question from the viewer says that, this video does nothing to prove which one of the religions are true. The question is valid. We do not answer the question about which particular faith is the right one. I obviously assume and have reasons why I believe Christianity is true and the other ones are wrong, but the video is only so long and has so many topics, so we can't tackle every single question in one video. Then every video would be 10,000 hours long. And in another video I can actually make a video talking about why Christianity is true and the other ones are wrong, and how we can know this because of historical evidence, archaeological evidence, and the evidence mainly because why did Christianity start? It started with the belief that Jesus rose from the dead, and if that is true and Jesus did rise from the dead, then I think that's a pretty credible person to trust. So thank you for all the comments. God bless you. Have a nice day.
Was a witness to the things that I know now. I'm 5 years out of school, super in debt. Got a house, not really a house, a basement for 2,000. Got a wife and got a baby. Can barely afford the groceries that's in my pantry. But somehow we got 40 billion to send to Ukraine and to Israel to fund the genocides in the world. Everything is outdoors, ain't that so wild? We got homeless veterans on the street, addicted to fentanyl, meth, everything that you see. I'm trying to tell you this shit will make your eyes bleed when you start seeing the reality.
You wouldn't
This is for me, this is for all the children will have, so they can remember that their parents were in love and they gave a good example. To follow Jesus Christ, that's the only example I'm trying to tell you.
Being terribly irresponsible, Alex, by spreading our corrosive doctrine.
It's true. It's true, at least to the extent that, I mean, there are studies to suggest that like religious people are like happier and they have better sex lives. That there's all kinds of things, and so like there is this case to be made that like even if you don't think it's true, like why would you talk people out of it? Like to what end? And you can say, oh, because I value truth and stuff. Like really, like more than you value people's well-being.